When you're running a business, it's nonstop. If you're the type person that really doesn't want to grind kind of constantly, it may not be for you. If you're the type person that really doesn't mind working for yourself and you feel like you can make a difference through the business you have, then go for it.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Science. We're live here from Atlanta, Georgia, back in studio from our last episode in North Carolina. And we have a special guest with us here, Dr. Ajamu Nkosi. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody of our mission and vision here at Beyond the Science. So it's to amplify the voices of diverse individuals within the field of ABA. And we aim to address and dissect the unique challenges, systemic barriers, and cultural nuances that impact various communities. By providing a platform for insightful discussions, expert interviews, and personal narratives, we strive to foster understanding, inspire change, and promote diversity and inclusion in ABA. Now, when I read that, fellas, that still gives me a little chills when I read that.
Yeah.
When I read that. So I'm going to start off introducing Dr. AJ, tell our listeners a little bit more about him. Dr. AJ is a distinguished co-founder of Southern Behavior Group, Stimulus Publications, and the International Behavior Analysis Organization, also known as IBAAO. He currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and is a board-certified behavior analyst with a PhD in psychology from Temple University. His professional journey is marked by his active involvement in several esteemed organizations dedicated to advancing the field of behavior analysis. These organizations include American Psychological Association, the Association for Behavior Analysis for Contextual and Behavior Science, the Georgia Association for Behavior Analysis, and Florida Association of Behavior Analysis. With a robust portfolio of publications, Dr. Nkosi research has been featured in JABA, International Journal of Behavior Consultation and Therapy, and a seminal book, Case Studies in School Psychology. He's also known as a prolific author, having written 4 books, including Behavior Analytic Consultation in Schools, and has delivered numerous presentations across the nation. Fellas, let's welcome Dr. AJ to the show. It sounded sharp right there, man.
Oh, man. Sounds better on paper, don't it?
This is going to be a special episode. For those of you guys who don't know, I know I've really said this on a lot if you follow me, but this guy right here has been one of my biggest inspirations in the field, been a mentor to me. So I'm ready to dive into it. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to get into some of his experiences. We're going to talk about some mentorship, talk about the BMBA Conference, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. So
Let's do it. Let's do it,
man. So, cool. Why don't you go ahead and get us started here today with chopping up with Dr. AJ.
Okay, cool. So we could pretty much jump right into it. I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself first to the audience and.
Jerron just did a great job of that. I don't think I can say too much after that, but no, I'm just Ajamu Nkosi, affectionately known as Dr. AJ around these parts, co-founders of a behavior analytic consultation company that we have here in this area called Southern Behavioral Group. We've been doing this for a long time. We started in 2005, so we're in our 19th year. Yeah, so we're really one of the first ABA-based consultation companies in Georgia, probably in the Southeast.
So my question would be, so that's powerful right there. That's amazing. What was that like? What was that journey like, being a Black man, being a BCBA, starting a company, growing a company, being successful? What were some of the hurdles you went through in that process?
I guess I would begin by saying it really was where to begin, figuring out where to begin my journey, to get to where I'm at now. My path here was really kind of round and about. I went the long way to get to where I'm at. I started out at Xavier University. I think it's the best HBCU in the country.
Yeah, there you go.
But Xavier University, shout out to the Gold Rush for that. But I started there majoring in philosophy, minored in African American studies, left there, went to Temple University with the intent to initially pursue doctoral studies in African American studies. But after I got there, due to the advice of someone who was very important in my life, Dr. Amos Wilson, I was kind of advised to go into something a little bit more applied. So I came out of African American studies and went into educational psychology. And so ultimately I ended up finishing my studies there at Temple in educational psychology, where I studied with some pretty prominent behavior analysts, We had Dr. Saul Axelrod there, Philip Heinlein, my dissertation chair, Dr. Kenneth Thurman. And from there, we just decided that, hey, this behavior and analytic approach to doing things was the best thing for me. I knew if I had like an applied way of doing things, because ultimately I wanted to help kids. That was my motivation, helping kids. So while I was in Philadelphia in that program, I worked in a lot of the local mental health agencies. They called them wraparound services. So we actually went out into the community, working with kids, trying to impact and change their behaviors. And that's when I fell in love with it. And then from there, through the advice of my dissertation chair, we reached out to the good folks here at the Marcus Center about some potential opportunities for me to come down here and work. And at that time, my brother from another mother, Dr. Mike Mueller, he was here in the Atlanta area, and my dissertation advisor got into contact, I think, with someone he knew, Kathleen Piazza, Dr. Wayne Fisher. They were working over in the feeding clinic at the Marcus Center. Put me in contact with Mike. Mike was working for a company called May Institute. He was director over there. He brought me in, and then maybe after a year or so of being there, I went to Mike and said, hey, let's do our own thing, So we created Southern Behavioral Group, 2005, and the rest is history.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
A lot of already here. So shout out to Mike. I think a lot more people should know about what you and Mike are just doing here in the area.
Yeah.
Debatable about what he said about the HBCUs, though. I know FAMU got something to say. A&M got something to say. The Rattlers.
Hey, man, they gotta have something to say, but hey.
So I'm curious. You say you've been doing this for 19 years.
Yeah.
What keeps you motivated now? You've been doing it for so long. Like, what is your why right now?
Oh man, the effects that we're having on like kids and families, to get those annual Christmas cards thanking me for work that I did 10 years ago. Wow. It lets me know I'm having an impact on families and children's lives. And that was really one of the mottos for Southern Behavioral Group, was that we were using science to improve the lives of children. And I never forgot that. That's what keeps me in it. Those kids to this day, they'll come over to you, give you a hug. Everybody, they see me coming to the school, Dr. AJ or whatever, You remember that.
I do remember that.
So yeah, that's the reward. The reward is in the work.
So I want to ask, I have a company, as Joe does. What are some of the pros of having a company and the cons, taking apart the clinician part of it? So not even just the BCBA, of just being a business owner and having staff, and what is that experience like?
Oh man, how long is this podcast? Hey man, that's a segment in and of itself. Yeah. Well, the obvious pros to it, is that you become a business owner, you become self-employed, you're in effect working for yourself. And to the extent that you have a good company and a good model, you're able to run, reap profits from doing that. So those are the kind of obvious benefits. But the cons, oh my God, man. The cons, look, when you're running a business, it's nonstop. Your employees, they get to go home, at 4 or 5 o'clock, and it's over with. But when you're running a business, it's around the clock. There's things, always something coming up. There's things like employee turnover. What happens when I'm not receiving reimbursements on time? You can run into cash flow issues. That's always an issue. Payroll, taxes. So everybody here always hears all the good things about, oh, I have my own business. I have my own business. But I say that to a lot of people. You sure you want these problems? You got to be built for it. You got to be, if you're the type person that really doesn't want to grind kind of constantly, it may not be for you. But if you're the type person that really doesn't mind working for yourself and you feel like you can make a difference through the businesses you have, then go for it.
I want you to talk about those moments, man, when you see those kids. So I coach basketball.
Yeah.
I taught in the school system, man. I sometimes see kids that are like 33 that was on my middle school team when we won the championship, and they come back to me and they remember those moments. So I want you to tell our viewers, because sometimes we do kind of forget, running the business and the ups and downs and just how business. Tell our viewers how special that moment is, like when that kid comes back or that parent comes back and they say, man, Dr. AJ, I really appreciate what you did.
Man, that's what keeps me going. I get that a lot. Fortunately, I'm fortunate enough to be able to get that kind of feedback a lot. But that moment, I'm not afraid to say, on several occasions, I've shed a few tears when I run into a parent or a child who I worked with previously, and they're hugging my neck and they're thanking me for, what I did to, my efforts in helping them. And I'm just a small part of what was going on in their lives. But that one piece, to realize how significant that was to them and how much it meant to them, oh man, that's what keeps me in it. Yeah. So that moments like that is what I look forward to.
Ultimate reinforcer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And I've experienced that with him. So those are listeners to listen. I worked with Dr. AJ, Southern Behavior Group. Amazing. Shout out to Southern Behavior Group, by the way.
Shout out to Southern Behavior Group.
Yes, and I experienced that joy. Dr. AJ took me under his wing when I first moved here. And for our listeners who don't know, BMBA, which this is Beyond the Science BMBA podcast, the organization was, a lot of it was inspired by you, inspired by the work that we did together, what you showed me. I always tell people who are around me, and I always tell you this, I feel like my biggest inspirations and mentors in this field were my dad, Kobe Bryant, and you. Two of them are no longer with us, but you still here. That brings me to talking about mentorship. I consider you to be my biggest mentor that I've had in my life. So you talking about shedding tears, I ain't getting emotional.
Yeah. I was ready to say, man, hey, okay.
I want you to talk to us about the power of mentorship. You spoke about, Amos and, his value of mentor to you. So I see it like a tree. It was him.
Yeah.
And he brought that in you. Now I see, me here. Talk to our listeners about the power of mentorship.
Yeah.
Both professionally, but also personally, and what it means to the development of a clinician and practitioner, especially for us as we continue to navigate these challenges as, 1% of Black male BCBAs here. Talk to our listeners about just that value and power of mentorship.
Priceless. You can't put a price tag on the value of true mentorship. And true mentorship is when somebody's really giving you something that you can use. You hear people say a lot of times, oh, this person's my mentor, that person's my mentor. But what do they really mean by that? What did you get from that relationship with that person that you're calling your mentor? And so for me, the true value in it stems from, does your mentor provide you with information that's going to help further you along the path that you set out for yourself? That's really what it kind of boils down to me. For me, it boils down to that. It's like, through this interaction and through this relationship, am I being provided with a certain amount of tools that's going to help me continue to build whatever it is that I'm trying to build? So that's where the value is. So in my life, having, like I mentioned, Dr. Amos Wilson, just telling me about the importance of going into applied work if you really want to help people. You know, I mentioned being a philosophy major. Like, what are you going to do with that? Right? But if you go into something like education, behavior analysis, things like that, you can actually help people. Yes. And so just that one nugget of saying, emphasizing the importance of, you know, application and applied work, and him kind of letting me know that that's what's most important. That was enough to take me to the next level. And so when you and I started, you know, interacting with one another, my thing was, what can I get his brother, you know, that I have that's been successful to me? How can I give this over to him? How can I transfer my knowledge of the game over to him? Let him know this is how we go about consulting. This is how I dress. This is how I walk. This is how I talk. This is how I carry myself in a meeting. You know, this is how I collect my notes. This is how I interview teachers, so on and so forth. And then kind of modeling that for you. A good mentor is also a good model. Yep. They're modeling for you how to go about doing things. And if you're intelligent, you'll pick up on that and add that to your toolkit, and it'll further you along. So that's really what it is for me.
So I'm gonna jump in there for a second, because I'm somebody that believes that, like, you don't get to that next level in life without a mentor. I think that the other side of it is that our culture has a crab in a barrel mindset a lot, and it's hard to find a mentor. It's hard for people to be vulnerable to say that is my mentor sometimes. Yeah. And then quickly, I want you, you know, and all you guys can have input on what it was like having the wrong mentor.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. You want to tackle that? You want to? I mean, I'm gonna let y'all talk about that.
You want to jump in? Want me to jump in?
I mean, yeah. So I wouldn't say the wrong mentor. I think I've had people that were their MO was different. You know, so I think jumping into the field, passing the exam, working at clinics and different companies under this private equity kind of life that we're in right now. So I think that the MO is different. I think when you're about helping kids and when you're about changing the trajectory of those kids' lives, that's where you'll see mentorship. And I really think that's the problem, or one of our issues in this field is that, you know, we have newly minted BCBAs who are looking for mentorship, and the 4, 5, 6 year and beyond BCBAs is just totally exhausted, and they have nothing to give because they've been just gone through this wheel of company after company after company, and they're done. Like they're burnt out.
Okay, and I hear that, but I'm taking this away from ABA right now. I'm talking about somebody in life that you looked up to in a mentorship role, and they essentially, I wouldn't say wasn't that person, but wasn't that person. Because I also think that was important. I went through that personally, where I had somebody that I was older, I was investing with, and it didn't really go the way it was supposed to go. But I learned so much from it that it was extremely important.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's the other part of it, that as important of having a good mentor is, you have to know when, like, not a bad mentor, but when you have a bad mentor. And maybe want to step away, or
it's kind of what Dr. AJ just said about a good mentor is a good role model things for you too. And so if you can things that are modeled for you that obviously aren't the behaviors that you're aligned with, then obviously that's obviously not going to work out. You guys kind of know I'm passionate about this subject, so I want to answer this for you both inside the field and let's take it beyond the science. So you guys know when I was coming up in the field, I came up in New Hampshire. And you guys can just think about the demographics there. But the first thing I'll say is there's a difference between supervision and mentorship, even though they both coincide. There can be very different things. And for me, I had some amazing supervisors coming up. They were middle-aged white women, taught me good at the science, but there was always something missing. I didn't quite know what it was. It wasn't until I moved to Atlanta when I met Dr. AJ that I saw the power of true mentorship, particularly for us, for somebody who looked like me and had aligned values that could talk to me and show me the way, taking me to the schools. We talk about things like, you know, microaggressions or discrimination or biases and stuff like that. There's only certain people with certain experiences that can share that information with you. So inside the science, I think, and Joe, you spoke about burnout, because there's only 1% of us, when there's so many men coming up in the field, so many people coming up, I feel like we don't have enough great mentors. And that in itself is an issue. Thinking about how many people being certified every year. So we don't have that. And so Coop took it to outside of ABA, and I think you can still use that model, but obviously it's a little bit different. I've had that experience, I think a family member of mine, when I kind of looked up to him, and I was a little disappointed, and then I kind of realized that online he had his own stuff going on, and he tried, his hardest. So mentorship is a really intimate, delicate piece that I think we need more of as we continue to talk about, BMBA, and we have our group mentorship program, which you guys come to those things. You guys see the power of that. I think this conversation that we can still continue to have, but that's a great question.
So my other question I would really ask, right, for also kind of again for everybody, Dr. AJ Moore, right? When did you start feeling like not that crabbed about like I can help other people, and when did you start getting around people where it was like they don't have ill intent, I could trust you? Like, what was that feeling like?
Before answering that directly, I'm gonna come back to something you said earlier. You said how you actually learned something from the person that was your mentor. So you got mentored without getting mentored. Right. if you really think about it, because even in that person's inability to mentor you, you still learn something very valuable from that process.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So this whole notion of thinking that the mentor just kind of pours things into you as if you're an empty receptacle. You're not an empty receptacle. That goes back. That reminds me of Paulo Freire's work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where he says students are not empty receptacles that we just deposit knowledge into. They already have information, and a good teacher is going to know how to facilitate and bring that out of them, right? So that's what that part of it is about. But as far as trusting people in terms of, knowing who you can freely get his information to and them not feel some kind of way about it, for me, it just kind of really came naturally. It was like a natural process, and it kind of grows out of my desire and need to want to help people.
Yes.
And particularly people like me, people who look like me or whatever, because as you mentioned, the percentages are low for us but our representation is low in most applied fields.
Correct.
And so what I did was, if I had some information to share with someone, to give it to them, I would give it to them if I thought it was beneficial to them. And that's really whether I trusted them or not, because of who I am. Yes. So if it comes from a good place, I think you can kind of get around that whole not worrying about how someone may perceive you providing your mentorship and them receiving it. Yeah.
Those are good points. And you spoke about just now, it comes naturally to you. And I've seen that firsthand, AJ walk into these schools like, oh, AJ, they come out there, dap him up. He's got that personality. And that's really kind of who you are. Like, I feel like that's who you probably have always been. And that, that's a good segue to kind of the work that you do. And the behavior analytic consultation in schools. Now, a few episodes ago, we had Dr. Bruce Senor on here. Shout out to Bruce. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, I saw that show. Yeah, y'all was giving him some flag over saying, what he saying?
Hot Atlanta. Yeah, Hot Atlanta. Yeah, we would say that. And you recently saw him in Philly, right?
I saw him in Philly.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bruce.
Yeah, shout out to Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce, you watching right now? We love you, brother.
Yeah, we love you, bro.
We took it from the perspective of he's an admin. He's a BCBA in the school.
Yeah.
But you do consultative services.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to let Joe take it away here, but, I want you to speak to our listeners about behavior analytic consultation in schools, what it entails.
Yeah, absolutely. So that work kind of grew out of what we, Mike and I had been doing at Southern Behavioral Group, going out and handling referrals. So the way our business works is we primarily contract with school systems, school districts. What it really boiled down to was, what type of service delivery model do we have, when we go out and meet and do the work that we do. When we started doing this, which is quite some time ago, there really wasn't any sufficient or adequate behavior analytic service delivery models. They just didn't exist. So you had behavioral consultation models, mental health, conjoint behavior consultation, the one just behavioral consultation. These were models, but they were mostly based on what we call didactic strategies, like kind of talking to, just like talking models. I'm going to go out, I'm going to talk, I'm going to interview, whatever. And what Mike and I kind of realized is that that's really not how we do it at all. We there's some of that involved in our models, but it's more than that. So to answer your question more directly, what we did was, in getting into the schools, is craft a service delivery model based on what we did from start to finish. So we sat down and said, okay, what are we really doing here? We receive a referral. What's the next step? Okay, then we got to go out to the schools. We got to make contact. So now I got to request records. I want to review records. And then I have to interview teachers. I have to talk to staffs. So these are all kind of steps in this model. You receive that referral. First step, go out, start collecting that, what we call indirect assessment, indirect, teacher interview, records, whatever. And then we move from that quickly to direct assessment. So now we're in the classroom, we're observing the client, and we're beginning to try to understand the variables that are maintaining their problem behaviors. But we're doing that in vivo, in real time, in the natural classroom environment. Then we go from that to developing hypotheses or for reasons for why we think the student is engaging in problem behavior. So for most folks, their functional behavioral assessments would kind of end there. But in our model, we would develop our hypotheses, and then after that, we need to test the hypothesis. And the only way to test the hypothesis is through conducting an experiment. And in behavior analysis, the experiment is functional analysis. So we got functional analysis. We experimentally figure out what the student's motivation is behind that behavior. What's the function of the behavior? After that, we need to come up with some treatments. We select treatments to go with the function, to match the function, so that we can eliminate the behavior. And then we demonstrate that the things that we're recommending are actually effective by conducting what? A treatment analysis. So we move from functional analysis, now we're in the treatment analysis. After we demonstrated that what we're recommending is effective with the treatment analysis, now we can say, look, we're standing by everything that we're going to recommend to you because we've been implementing this ourselves and see it works. And what we found with teachers, school personnel, people want what works, right? So we give them that, and then we say, okay, if you do this, you should get the same results. They look at all our graphs and they see the behaviors are coming down if they just follow what we tell them to do. Then there's a training component where we train them on how to implement the treatment that we're recommending. And then we try to generalize this treatment over into the classrooms with the staff actually now running it themselves. And then we test for social validity. So basically in doing that, what we figured out was that that's actually a service delivery model, because most behavior analysts, when they come out of school, they don't know how to get into schools. They're not even courses on how to consult. So consulting is a step-by-step process. It's a service delivery model from start to finish, where we get the problem and then we see it all the way to the end through treatment, staff training, generalization, and then we ask them how they felt about what we're doing. So that's your social validity piece. So you need that. If you're a behavior analyst, you need tools, to be able to say, did I do step 1, step 2, step 3? So we do this in a very systematic and scientific manner.
I love that. And you guys actually put that in the book, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Joe got it right there?
Yeah, I have it right here, guys. It's available for purchase.
Yeah,
Amazon Prime. That's where I got my
copy.
Yeah,
we had a little glitch with Amazon. We're gonna be putting it out on a couple of other sites. We have books. We have traditional eBay. We're gonna list some up there. We're gonna put it around in a variety of different places.
You can get this on a BMBA website for a little discount or something.
We give it. As a matter of fact, BMBA. That's where you can get this.
We can throw it on there. So
I'm gonna jump in here because that's amazing too. Coming from being an educator, I do think there needs to be more educators that make that transition to become a BCBA. In this model, where are the parents? and what can the parents do? Can the parents call an IEP meeting? Can the parents take your dad and say, hey, I don't understand this? Or if there's a teacher that comes from a different area of life, right? Because we have a lot of teachers that are coming from other areas, right? So where are the teachers and where are the parents, especially the parents? I really want you to talk to the parents to see what they can do after this.
Absolutely. So the full title of the model is Behavioral Consultation to Schools. So in this particular work, the focus is on how you consult in a school system. However, the steps in the process that I just kind of laid out would be followed the same way if you were doing the work with a family. So if you were working in a home, you would still do the same thing. And now the family is going to take on the role that the teachers took on at school. They're going to be giving you all the information you need, right? Because we realize that determining behavioral function is going to change based on the environment where the referral is coming from. The function of the student's behavior at school could be radically different from what it is at home. So we're going to ask a different set of questions at home than what you would ask in school. So the role for parents is, for those who are want to kind of follow a systematic way of getting help for their children using this model, would be to, during that parent interview phase of this, be there to provide all of the appropriate rich information about what's going on in the home and in the community that's having an impact on their child's behavior rather, and explain that to the behavior analyst in a way that would allow them to develop those hypotheses. And then they would test those hypotheses in the natural home environment. The parents play a very important role in that. And even on the school side, sometimes when you're conducting your teacher interviews, the teachers may not know as much about, the student. That's when we can go out and we still bring the parents into the process and ask them about known reinforcers, what type of medications their student may be on that may be having an impact. The school may not be privy to all of those little idiosyncratic variables that you're not able to get from just a teacher interview. So there's still a place, even in the school model, for that, although we just try to place more emphasis on, the contingencies that are happening in the school. If we're doing it in schools, as opposed to if we're working in a home environment.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And that's good for our parents to know. And Joe, thanks for asking that question. Passing that book right there, Joe. Yeah. So, behavioral analytic consultation in schools, guys. So that was for our parents. Now, I know there's a lot of practitioners and clinicians who are happy to hear about this model, who are in the school systems, who maybe not have. This is like a task analysis, guys. It literally is a TA that takes you through what you need to do. Can you briefly speak to our clinicians, our practitioners out there who will want to use this model? It's about any pitfalls, any pushbacks you get from the schools. People say, hey, we don't want you coming in and, doing these, tests. Like, talk to any pitfalls and how you've addressed those in the school system, to specifically our practitioners who want to use this BACS model.
The best way to address a pitfall is to give people something that works, right? Yeah. What we found out is that all of the so-called pushback, and I think I know where you're going with this, is particularly the functional analysis component of this. When you mention experimentation, functional analysis, that some folks, that rubs them the wrong way. What do you mean you're going to conduct an experiment to determine why my child is doing what they're doing? Well, if you really understand the true nature behind what functional analysis is, what you'll really find out is that the functional analysis is just replicating on a very, very small scale what's already happening. The conditions that are bringing about problem behaviors in your students or your child, they're already happening in the school, and they're not happening in 5-minute, brief 5-minute, they're happening all day long, right? And so we think the benefits of conducting a functional analysis to know with absolute certainty what the function is far outweigh, some of the alleged kind of, downsides to it. Yeah. When we conduct these analyses, the total time it may take to do it, you're talking about an hour, hour, 45 minutes, total time. Not all in one day, of course, just to get that behavioral function. But the way we beat back the criticism from staff, school folks, is by giving them recommendations that actually work based on the results of that experiment. And keep in mind now, in schools, and especially in special education in this country, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars are being spent, right? For people want results. You can't go into a school with an FBA that's based merely on direct observations and correlations and say that you've identified accurately why a student is doing what they're doing. When we assess problem behavior, it can be attention, it can be tangibles, it can be escaping. And I'm gonna break the language down for our parents at home, right? So, at home, most students are engaging in problem behaviors, and people in general are doing things in order to get something or to get out of something. That's what's happening. Now, in our science, we call that getting something, it falls under the principle of positive reinforcement. And it comes in different forms. And then that getting out of something, in our field, that falls under the umbrella of what we call negative reinforcement. And it also comes in many different forms, okay? But at the end of the day, what we want our parents to understand is that when we're conducting these analyses, what we're really doing is we're going to try to figure out what it is that your child's getting or what it is that they're getting out of in schools or in homes. And what that boils down to, typically in school settings, is a couple of things, maybe 3 to 4 things. Number one, your child is doing this because they're getting attention for it, what they call attention-seeking behavior. Number 2, your child is doing this because they're getting access to something, some preferred tangible object, activity, or whatever it may be. Number 3, your child is doing this in order to escape, avoid, or delay having to comply with a task demand that's being placed on them at school. Now, all of those are what we call socially mediated functions: attention, tangibles, and escape. And then we also have a 4th function, which is what we call automatic reinforcement, but for our parents, stimulus, sensory stimulation. So the behavior produces its own source of reinforcement. Yeah. Right. Sort of like if I was rocking back and forth in my seat right now, you could say the kinesthetic movement of my body moving back and forth is reinforcing. So I find something that's self-stimulating, and that reinforces the behavior. So it doesn't require the presence of other people. It just occurs, like thumb sucking or any other sensory-based behavior. Yeah.
So I have a question. So what is your opinion on early diagnosis? Do you think that 3 years old is early? Should parents wait? Like, how do you feel about that?
To us, we always encourage parents to try to get on these behaviors as soon as possible. So the sooner you can get a diagnosis, if you see something's going on, something's not quite right with your child compared to other children, neurotypical children, then of course get that diagnosis, because that's going to free you up to be able to get access to these types of services. So we're always going to fall on the side of that. So early intervention is key. But as behavior analysts, for us, it really doesn't matter per se, like when the child has been diagnosed, because we're still going to approach those behaviors using the same model.
Why do you think that so many parents are in denial as far as getting their child diagnosed?
I mean, who wants to receive that kind of news? I think it's just a natural human tendency. Yeah. If you know something's not quite right, you notice something like maybe she shouldn't be doing this, right? Or maybe he shouldn't be doing it. I'm not sure. And I've heard all kind of stories about kids that do those things. That can't be my child. I don't want it to be my child, right? I don't fault parents for that. We don't fault parents for that. Just a natural feeling to have. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you really want to change what's going on and get some help, just get the diagnosis and start getting on those services as soon as possible.
Yeah, man, great question, Coop. Yeah. And appreciate the gems that you're giving. You're listening to Beyond the Science here, live in our studios here in Atlanta, Georgia, here with Coop, Joe, and Dr. AJ. And we've been talking about this behavior-analytic consultation in schools, and Dr. AJ just gave us a great breakdown on, positive and negative reinforcement. And we spoke to our parents and, the clinicians out there. I quickly want to stay on this before we move on. When you speak about determining the function of behavior, you know, I feel like a lot of practitioners would appreciate this. And, you know, you spoke about not most, but a lot of times we're stopping at these more indirect assessments, right? So we may even do, you know, the interviews, we may take some ABC data, and we kind of stop there. And you spoke about how that is not sufficient to really determine and say with confidence. And I experienced this firsthand when we work together, that you can't with confidence say, now you can say it's correlation. I just want you to quickly speak to the power of having this analysis done versus just we've done some, you know, correlational data, which could be valid, but how determining that and why that is the gold standard in our science.
Man, that's a great question. Yeah, because without doing anything, we already know there can be attention tangible as escape, right?
There you go.
So why are we doing an assessment? So for all of our behavior analysts out there, if you know what the possible functions are, it's a positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement contingency that's in play. You know that without even talking to a teacher. Yeah. So why talk to a teacher? Right? Or you say, well, because we want to see to an extent these things are correlating in the environment. But correlation does not mean causality, right? Just because something's correlated doesn't necessarily mean that it's those one variable is responsible for the other. A good example of this textbook example actually is like, there's a correlation between summertime and drowning deaths. They're correlated. But do people drown because it's summertime? Is summer the cause for these deaths? No, there are a variety of other variables that come into play. You know, so in a school environment, it's super rich. There are so many things going on in school. Almost all problem behaviors in schools are being followed by some form of attention because they can't be ignored.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's always going to be on the table, right? So if that's the case, how do you ferret that out? How do you know with absolute certainty that it's attention and not something else? Yeah. The only way to do that scientifically, and last I checked, behavior analysis is a science, is to perform some type of functional analysis. And so that's what we do.
What can a parent do, or can a parent ask for if they feel as these targeted strategies or the function is incorrect? It might be attention, but they put escape. Yeah. Because in my practice, I kind of have that a lot where I'm like, these are just hypothesized. Yeah. Nothing was tested. So can you talk to the parents about the next step that they could take with their local school district?
Yeah, absolutely. What parents should do is try to get with their local school districts, special education coordinators. If you feel that you have a functional behavioral assessment that's not accurate or it hadn't led to an effective treatment for your child, then you can always request an independent evaluation. Right? And so you have a right to do that. And a lot of parents don't know that. We have parents that call us all the time and they're wanting us to come in and work with them and to help them. And they're willing to pay out of pocket to receive these types of services.
And the school has to pay for this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that's where I was going, under, IDEA 2004, it guarantees, the FBAs. FBAs are just, they have to be conducted. And if you have one that's not effective, then it's a simple matter of reaching out to your local, special ed coordinator. Some counties, places have lead teachers. Make that contact. Talk to them. Tell them what your concerns are. And if you feel what they have on paper is just not sufficient, just request an independent evaluation. And then you can get companies like ours, and there are others out there that the school district can reach out to and say, hey, we have a parent that wants an independent evaluation. Can you guys do it?
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
You get Excellence Noir out there doing these independent evaluations.
Yeah, we're about to be there, man. We're soaking the game up right now.
The school is listening to AJ right now, like, oh, okay, you giving them game? It's actually a free right of the parent.
I just want to ask you, you wear many hats, but what is your favorite and which one are you kind of the most proudest of in this season of life right now?
Oh man. See, we knew that was gonna come up. We knew that was gonna come up. For everybody out there that's watching this, hey, I grew up in Alabama, right? So I'm even though I didn't go to the University of Alabama, I grew up an Alabama Crimson Tide football team. So a fan rather. So this brother right here, he's Georgia. He's Georgia.
Number one ranked team, Georgia
Bulldogs. So I'm a diversity. So for our listeners, we are here in Atlanta in the deep South, and I know we have listeners all over the world. But this college football out here is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
So you may hear a lot of, as college football season approaches during these next few episodes, a little banter going on. Okay.
Tell them where we're going at the end of September. Where we going?
Oh, we have to go to this Bama game versus Georgia. These Bulldogs. Yeah.
Well, I'll be there tomorrow. Live at the kickoff. Number one UGA plays Clemson. It really doesn't matter who we play. September 28th, we should have like a little bet. I think JT, I think when Georgia wins, you look like a large to me. Large. I think on our next pod, I think you need to be wearing a Georgia shirt.
If Georgia beats Alabama this year, I will wear a Bulldog shirt.
Okay.
And if Alabama wins, I'll put on that elephant crap.
You'll put it on proudly.
Go ahead.
It's like I always wanted to wear one of them.
Oh, we talked about the hats. Your favorite hat you wear.
We have a variety of different things that we're doing. We'll get into some of that, I'm sure. But my main hat for me is just the doing the actual physical work on the ground. We have people who have been working with us for many, many years. Young behavior analysts, some more seasoned, and one of the things I pride myself on is, even though I'm one of the business owners for Southern Behavior Groups, I always tell them they're not doing anything that I'm not still doing.
Ooh, I love
he keeps a case. He keeps a
You know
case.
what I mean?
I love it.
He keeps these kids too.
I keep several cases. So I'm still doing the work, man.
Yes.
So I'm out here. I'm out here, man.
He's been doing that too.
Yeah. So I would say that's my favorite thing.
I'm gonna edit his answer. His favorite hat that he wears is being a father. Don't let him fool you. That's second, the way he mentioned.
And this might just be off track, but talk about being a parent and being a business owner all at the same time. And it just might be because this is what I'm struggling with right now for our viewers. I'm struggling with that balance. I don't know if it's even possible, but maybe just for 2 minutes, man, just talk about just how that is.
I try not to put a whole lot of stock behind a title, you know what I mean? Like, even though I've been a business owner for quite some time, I don't kind of walk around with it like it's not written across my chest. So when my kids were coming up, I have 2 daughters. Shout out to Asada and Amadi. I have 2 daughters who, as I was coming up through this, they just saw me as, hey, he going to work. Dad works in school. So, that's what he does. So they just saw my job as being just another occupation out here amongst many. But I didn't place any kind of special status on it with them in terms of, hey, I'm a business owner.
All right, so I want to ask you the question, right? Because Joe and I, we have this conversation a lot, right?
Yeah.
I think that when you get to a certain level, right, and let's even say financially, there has to be some sort of, my daddy's rich.
Oh man!
Listen, it depends on the lifestyle, but even just naturally, certain things, depending on how you fly, how you vacation, how you do certain stuff.
I mean, they're learning history of life.
Other kids that
I get that
aren't
Their
doing.
reinforcers are different.
Trust me. I've heard that quite a bit.
I heard it last night.
I've heard it quite a bit. You know what I mean? And I always try to titrate it down too. You know what I mean? You're gonna get some of that. When your kids think that you own a business, just because you own a business doesn't necessarily mean you're filthy rich either. You could just be doing really well. But you just gotta try to not put the emphasis on the money making aspects of it. I never do that. I never really kind of emphasize. I'm because I do this, I'm making a lot of money. It's never been about that for me. It's always been about you put in the good work and all the stuff will come. You know, so just do the work and it comes. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
great. All right, guys, you are listening to Beyond the Science. We are here live in our studios. I want to segue here, guys, to this historic, monumental event that we have coming up next week. The first annual Black Men in Behavior Analysis Conference. This is one that I hold dear to my heart. You guys know that. I remember when I first told AJ about it, he was like, man, you can do it. You know, just gave me some words of encouragement. This is significant. This is a conference for all, but we're really highlighting a lot of the work and celebrating us of what we're doing. I just want to quickly give some shout outs to some of our presenters. Keynotes of the conference are Bruce, who we had on the show here, and Dr. Antonio Harrison. Our presenters are the Terrence Allen and Jerron Cooper. Just want to give a shout out to all of our panelists, Dr. Terrence Bryant, Michael Conta, Vargas Clark, Andre Anderson, Glenn Harrell, Mike Williams, Jared Van, Brian Antoine, Mike Reynolds, and Wes Lowry. And then we have our Drop the Mic speakers, Kurt Kirby and Dr. Polly Gavoni. Then we have some sax battles, Derek Roberts, Joshua Jemison, and our amazing hosts, Carlos Del Rio and Ricky Hawks. Now, I don't want us as a group to talk about this here, but obviously I've told you on many occasions, you know, a lot of the motivation behind BMBA has, you know, been off of a lot of things that you've inspired me to do and what you've shown me. And now look where we're at now. And we're going to have this conference in person in Atlanta next year, by the way. We got some plans. We're going to have some tournaments going on. But I want to stay focused in terms of when you were coming up in this field, and you spoke about this on many occasions on all your talks, you know, you would go to these conferences and you would be the only black male there or black individual there. When you hear that there's a conference now, a BMBA conference, what does that mean to you when you hear that? Like, we're having a conference now that's for us. What does that mean to you based off of your learning history and where you came up in the field to where we're at now in 2024?
Yeah, it just means that we're making progress. We're moving forward from a time period when many of us weren't as active in the field or didn't even know about the field. I think a big part of this numbers game that we seem to be kind of caught up in is that, you know, back when I was doing this, you know, first started doing it, there wasn't a BCBA. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a board certification. It didn't exist. It just didn't, right? And so as the field began to take shape and begin to have some legitimacy and have a certification tied to it, quite naturally, you know, given the numbers that we have, you know, our population in the country is only 13%. When I would go to these conferences, it was clear to me that I would be a minority within those conferences, just based on the population statistics of the country, right? So I didn't read too much into that part of it because I kind of knew that's what it was. But to go from those days when I'm just, like you said, literally, it may be 1, 2, 3, you know, black behavior analysts walking around in the conference. Actually, Mike and I used to joke about it. But yeah, man, it just shows that we're making progress in bringing greater awareness to the fact that this field does exist and that many, you know, black people is now starting to see that it's out here and they're learning. There are tons of online programs where you can get get the educational training you need in order to sit for the exam. And now that all of those things have happened, we're starting to see more movement, you know, with our presence within this field. Yeah. It's just like with all other occupations, you know, you see the same thing. So it's big, you know, to see that now we went from where I was to now, like you said, you're hosting a conference where this is being highlighted. So
when you say that, man, I want to give a shout out to the entire ABA community for embracing BMBA. For those of you guys that know, the conference is for all. Anybody can come to the conference to learn, to grow, to support together. So shout out to everybody that's been supporting for the conference. I'm looking forward to see everybody there September 7th, 11 a.m., 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's a virtual conference this year. So shout out to all the things BMBA is doing. We have working hard on this conference, and I think it's going to shape up to be historical numbers, and it's going to be an impactful conference.
Hey man, I just want to take a few minutes just to applaud you for your efforts, man. I really do. You know, I
Appreciate it, man.
yeah, you're doing some great work, man. You're doing some great work. I remember when I first.
Ooh, tell us a story.
Yeah.
Tell us a story.
Keep it PG-13.
I remember when I first, me and Deron started interacting back in 2017, right? When I first met him, and he became a part of our group, the first thing that I noticed about you was just how passionate you were about the science, number one. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was you were always asking questions. You were always kind of trying to, he was doing like the classic brain drain thing with me, right? So all the time he's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. What about this? And what about that? And so when I saw that in you, brother, I said, man, let me take this brother and put him under my wing and show him what it is that I'm doing and how we go about doing things, And I remember talking to Mike about you. I was, hey, man, Ron, he's sharp, man. We gotta try to find a role for him within SBG. We were really trying to promote you to the big whatever. You know what I mean? Yep. I was gonna give you your own parking space and your own,
Lexus.
Your own.
A company car. They get a company car.
Hey man, we'll get you about 4 or 5 MacBooks and anything we can do, man, to keep you, man. But I know we're gonna be able to contain you, man, because you had a lot of ambition. And I saw that drive in you, man. And so I just want to let you know, you said a lot of wonderful things about me, but I want to let you know that I'm very proud of your growth and your development. I'm very happy to know that I played an important role in your life. And it just goes back to that old saying in our community, each one teach one. And that's what happened. I had others teach me, and I had a responsibility to show you and teach you. You just do that with everybody else that's coming after you. Man, that's all I ask you to do.
I appreciate that, man. I gotta get look at this team right here. We got, man. I see. And I appreciate that. That famous. I always say that famous Kobe Bryant interview, and he's like comparing him to Mike, and like, hey, what you see from Mike? I mean, what you see from me, you get from Mike, and that's how I feel about you, man. What you guys see from me is a lot has been instilled and from you. So shout out to you again. All the impact that you made in my life. You see the impact now.
Thank you, brother.
So,
thank you.
Let's get into the future of ABA, man. I want to let Joe take this one. You and Coop can talk. I know we gotta have a lot of questions about the future of ABA. A lot of parents out there, a lot of clinicians out there. So I'll let one of y'all take that one.
So the future ABA, inside the science and outside the science, right? Because inside the science, things are changing within ABA, right? We've got technology coming in. We've got a lot of new practitioners. We've got newly minted RBTs. Talk to us how different it was in 2005, right? Pre-insurance, pre-Ava's Law, and then how it could be going forward, both good and bad.
Back in 2005, things were a lot simpler in terms of being able to go out and to just do the work. You could actually go and perform behavior analytic work unimpeded. Yeah. But now, because of insurance, because of the prevalence of it seems like there's a gazillion companies out here now doing this stuff. It's more or less kind of muddied the water, so to speak, a little bit with regards to the actual practice of the science. Because what's happening is people are being driven more and more by the insurance billing nowadays, whereas back when we started, we didn't have to worry about that. So it wasn't about how many RBTs I can get in my company so that I can bill insurance companies. That wasn't the case. It was more about let's show everybody and indeed the world that this science of ABA actually works. Because it's still a new field, relatively speaking. So that's the biggest difference. Is like back then it was a certain purity about being able to do the work. And it was exciting being able to go and conduct some of the first functional analyses in public school systems, things that we were hearing about that was happening in clinics and laboratories, we were actually now doing in school. So it was exciting. But now, because there's so many people involved, it's also introduced other variables, that we didn't have to deal with. Time constraints on what we can do now as opposed to what we couldn't do then. the insurance companies, as I understand it, they put a cap on how many units or whatever a therapist can spend doing whatever. We didn't have that restriction. We kind of worked until we got the job done. So that is one of the things that's really different about the field now. So the good thing is the expansion of the field. More and more kids are able to access services. But one thing I'm hoping doesn't happen is that the quality of service starts to be impacted by that.
I think that the quality of service is going to be impacted only because of there's a lot of financial gain. And I think that companies are being brought out and it's becoming more of a business than it is healthcare sometimes, in a sense, because you have people, I have met people who worked for a company. The woman wasn't a BCBA, wasn't an RBT, didn't even know about she didn't even know about ABA. She had a friend in DFACS or that just said, hey, if you can pay someone who has a BCBA, you can take these kids and bill a crazy amount. And she was billing like 80 hours a week, something crazy, just had no idea what she was doing. And I'm like, that's unfortunate. And that's going to happen more and more. And I think the other side of it is that it's a good thing because the supply will never meet the demand.
Yes.
Never, ever,
Yep.
And I think that even with us doing this and having companies, I want to be that standard as to say, like I worked at Hope Bridge. That was one of the companies I came up with. And I felt like every clinic company has their stuff, but their structure was amazing. Like those kids graduated out. The BCBAs were hands-on. They were in the clinic with you 40 hours a week, So I know that quality ABA is out there and it is possible. I just think companies have to start setting more standards in competition to say like, hey, we're not going to just bill. Like, we care about, what the data is showing and the behavior is going down and, you're not missing sessions. So I feel like once we can get more into that space, the quality of care goes up.
Absolutely. Those are great points.
Absolutely.
Great points. Joe, you spoke about the future of ABA with Dr. AJ here. I have a twofold question for you before we move to Off the Clock Hoop. Well, one's a statement and then another question. Can you speak a little bit about, because I know you're the co-founder of International Behavior Analyst Organization, IBAAO. Speak a little bit briefly about what you're doing with that work, because I think some of our listeners want to know about what that is. And then the second part is, could you speak briefly to the paraprofessionals, the RBTs out there who, may have interest in this field? Can you speak to them a little bit about like what this field entails, how you can make a career out of it, and just some of the benefits that go along with that? I know it's two different questions, but if you answer both of those, and then we can move to Off the Clock.
The IBAAO, so the International Behavior Analysis Organization, is an organization, a credentialing organization, certification providing organization that myself and Dr. Michael Mueller created back in 2020 to better meet the needs of the international community with regards to making sure that they had qualified, competent behavior analysts working with their children. It was also brought about as a result of the decision by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board to no longer be able to provide certifications for people who weren't in the United States. We saw that as an opportunity for us to create an organization and a company that will meet that challenge, continue to work in the international communities and continue to try to make sure that we had competent behavior analysts. We refer to them as IBTs, international. The RBT is an IBT, and then you have IBAs, international behavior analysts, with our certification. But it was just really kind of trying to meet that international need and to make sure that we were doing that in a very efficient and productive way. And up until now, we've been very, very successful. We have over 4,000 applicant certificates. All of our materials have been translated in over 17 different languages. We have a professional advisory board with members representing over 40 different countries. So it's really kind of taken on a life of its own. And most of that work is being done, by, Mike. We have both. We have these organizations. We have Southern Behavioral Group, and then we have International Behavior Analysis Organization. And so we have kind of like a division of labor thing kind of going on with both companies. But he's been moving it along. I've been kind of getting in there whenever I can, when we're not taking breaks from Southern Behavioral Group. Yeah. And it's been helping, man. It's growing, and we're reaching people. And here's the other thing. It kind of lines up with your mission. What you like doing is that global behavior analysis can't be just confined to just U.S. standards, right? Mm-hmm. Right? There's a global community out there. There are different sets of challenges, different cultural needs. The ethics here could be different from what they are in Venezuela, yes. Right? And so what we want to do is kind of make sure that those voices of the people in the international community was being heard. Even educational training can be different. So you have to have an organization that's going to be flexible to meeting those needs and facing those challenges. And we feel that the International Behavior Analysis Organization does that. Yes. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about that, just go to the IBAAO.com website, and you can find out all of the wonderful things we have going on with that organization.
I love that. And I want you to answer the second question, but I don't know if you remember. I remember when you were developing that, you came into one of our, so every Friday we come in, we do supervision for y'all. When I worked with him, he'd go through the articles, we talk about everything. He'd make sure our language was tight. But I remember you came in one day, you was like, Jay, man, I got this idea. You wish you had it, man. I remember when you did that. Yeah. But I just want to give a shout out to you and Mike. Y'all are like a strong tandem, man. Yeah. Like, to have those business partners and friends to go to that long, I think y'all are just a great 1-2 punch, man.
And to be fair, man, like, we've always tried to come up with innovative ways to help folks within this field, mm-hmm. and to be quite candid and honest about it. The idea was really, it kind of came out of Mike's head after a trip that he had made over to Eastern Europe. And then when he came back, as we do with everything, we kind of discussed that, hey, man, it's something to be done there. We can help folks. We can really help people in the international community. Yeah. And then from there, just like we do with all the other projects, we just kind of blend it together and begin to create a vision for it, what it would look like, who do we need to get involved, and things like that. So yeah, he's been the one spearheading it. We co-founded it together, but it's moving. Yeah. It's moving. That's all I can say.
I've seen Mike on the socials doing a lot of work.
You see it.
Shout out to Mike, man. Mike's amazing. So my second question was to the Darius Coopers of the world. It's only one you, Coop. It's not a lot of Darius Coopers in the world. This guy right here is sharp. Yeah. But to the paraprofessionals, the RBTs out there, who may not know about that and may be listening, could you speak briefly before we get into our next segment, just about hearing out, what it is, how they can make a career out of it?
In this field, we desperately need people who can actually implement the behavior interventions that we come up with as behavior analysts. Mm-hmm. A behavior analyst can't be at the same site, throughout the day and be effective. We have to kind of have a caseload of clients and then we have to divvy our time up in a way that will allow us to meet the needs of all those clients in a very productive way. But how do we do that? We don't do that by us doing every single step of what we're asking the teachers to do. We need help with that. Mm-hmm. So that's where the role of the RBT comes in. This is a registered behavior therapist, someone who would come in and get about 40 hours of, training in the science, supervised training under someone who knows the science, and then they can actually go out and begin to assist the behavior analysts in implementing their behavioral interventions. Yeah. And so we just want more and more people to know that there are opportunities in this field for you to do this. Yeah. If you have an interest in working with children, you have an interest in how behavior works, what's the reason behind certain behaviors. If you're the type person that really want to, manipulate variables and see, what kind of outcomes you're going to get as a result of that. And most importantly, if you're the type person that wants to have a positive impact on a child's or a family's life, this is a career for you.
Oh, I love that. And I want to add a part of that as RBT. It can be very lucrative, but it can also be very inconsistent.
Yes.
And I think that that's part of it, because you'll go on Indeed and you'll see 25 to 35 an hour. And a lot of companies aren't very transparent with, you know, how things really go, because you can have a kid that goes on vacation for a week, or, you know, that's sick and majority of companies do not reimburse when people are canceling. So that is just something, to be honest. I think that, you know, it's something that if you want to work with children, if you're working in the daycare setting, it makes more sense to go get your RBT, because you can make 20 to 25 an hour compared to 11 to 15 an hour, but do know what comes with it being an RBT.
Yeah. You know what I like what you're doing? We got this kind of, me and him, we got this kind of good cop, bad cop thing going on. Like, so I'll give everybody, I'm going to give you the commercial.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then he going to come over and say, don't believe that. You know what I mean? Don't believe that. Don't believe that. But let me keep, I like how you keeping it real. You keeping it real with our listeners, even though, you know, AJ just gave you guys the commercialized version of what an RBT is. It is really some work. It's a grind to it. There's a side to it, just like anything else. You're gonna get hit. You're gonna get bitten.
Yes.
You know, you may go periods of times where you have cases. You have sometimes where you don't have cases. You know,
Yes.
And so I do want to also emphasize that, you know what I mean? I do have a tendency to kind of give you the bright side of the moon. He gonna give you the dark side of the moon.
Hey man, hey, and this guy right here this guy can sell ISO Eskimo, so watch out for him, man. So quickly, I'm gonna let you jump in, Joe. Can we stop for a minute? And give a special shout out to all the RBTs out there? The work that the RBTs are doing. Let's just clap it up for the RBTs, because the RBTs, the parent profession out there, are doing a lot of work, and they don't get a lot of shine. So shout out to the RBTs out there doing the work. I also want to plug, it's not out there yet, but I'm going to say it now. RBTs are going to start needing CEUs. I'm not sure if you guys know that. Starting next year.
What year?
Wow.
Yeah, starting next year, RBTs going to need CEUs. So we're having our first RBT conference, all right, for RBTs only. And that's coming soon. Stay tuned to that. That's going to be brought to you by the ABA Collective, but the RBTs are going to need CEUs. So having Coop on this show is so valuable, because we can talk all day as, you know, but the perspective of a RBT, I feel like is just invaluable. So Coop, I want to move to Off the Clock, man. That's your segment. Off the Clock. This is a new segment that we doing, AJ. It's called Off the Clock.
Be aware, Dr. AJ. Anything, man.
So this is beyond the science. So we talking anything. It could be anything. But this Coop came up with this segment where we asking people. So every episode we doing this. So Coop, why don't you go hit him with a keep it nice now?
Yeah, of course. So I think that I'm gonna bring it back to North Carolina, right? And I want to go a little bit beyond the sports.
Oh, okay.
Right, Dr. AJ? So I want to do a wager of golf. Me and you, right? We're going to do a segment. Me and you, we're going to play some golf, and I want to put a wager on it. Now, what do y'all think the wager should be?
No,
do you play golf?
No, I don't play. We need to play basketball or something. You know what I mean?
All right, you a little bit too old to play me in
No,
basketball.
come on.
I ain't want to say that now.
Now, I'm going to tell you what they used to say.
This guy can hoop now.
What they used to say to the young brothers? You better watch your mouth.
I was trying to do a sport that was age appropriate.
No.
I was trying to do an age appropriate sport.
You trying to be slick.
Yeah.
He did me like that.
Did me like that.
And then I beat you.
Because I'm an old man. He want to play.
He trying to. And then he said golf. The disrespect.
Golf. No, he can play Mike in golf.
Mike play golf.
Professional.
Yeah, professional. But so your
professional
thing is
level.
So we may need to get a 2-on-2 going. 2-on-2
basketball.
So 5. Okay, for our listeners, I ain't trying to put you out there.
You know what?
This brother right here is.
We gonna arm wrestle.
You want to stand up from now? This brother right here to take care of himself. Hey, you gonna come in here with some one-on-one basketball stuff? You better make sure you talking coming correct.
We can do any kind of physical sport. Boxing.
Boxing.
Yes, sir. We can do boxing.
Take me in the weight room.
We can do weights. We can do football. We can do running too. Running. We can go outside right now. We can go outside right now. You want to record this? Let's go outside.
Hold on.
We can go outside.
Hold on.
We can go outside.
All right, pause. This was not no last footage, but in North Carolina.
2
weeks ago, we shot an episode in North Carolina.
Yeah,
shout out to Joni Reed.
Yeah.
Me and him did a race. No shoes, no nothing.
In a Walmart parking lot.
Man, I smoke
Public.
this guy.
Public.
I smoke this guy. All right, off the clock. We're going to get something going off the clock. I like that. All right, we'll think about that.
We're gonna get that going.
All right, fellas. So let's bring it back. Listen, man, this has been us. This is historical. You know, having you on the show just means so much to me. I mean, you guys know I've talked about since we started the show. Let's get AJ on. So you being here,
Thank you.
It's surreal. I want to thank you for coming on the show, for spending time with us. We've talked about behavior analytic conversation in schools and the conference and mentorship. We've had a little fun here. There's, a little banter, but AJ has done it all. So you have the company, you have IBAAO, you have everything. I feel like you've conquered a lot. As we conclude here, what's next for you? What do you feel like this chapter, the next phase of your life, what do you feel like is next? What do you want to see for yourself as you continue to move forward and as you continue to be in this field and out of this field? What's next for you?
Take what we're doing, what I have been doing on a global scale. This past April, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Vietnam. And we have some certificates over there now with the International Behavior Analysis Organization certification, and just the reception we receive for the work that we're doing, and seeing how many more people we can actually help just throughout the world and a variety of different places. That's what's next. So it's like, stepping out. It's like if you've been flying around the earth, now you want to go to outer space, So it's so it's the same thing with this. It's like I've been doing a lot of stuff here in the States locally. Now the next phase is to take this whole thing internationally, try to impact more people, and just let that be our contribution.
In 2016, when I started my journey in Georgia, and I typed in ABA in a Google search, it was just a Southern Behavior Group. And it's just a joy just to come and meet you. My journey was a little different because in Georgia, there really wasn't agencies to get your supervision hours in 2016. So I kind of had to postpone my path. So, one of my biggest goals at that time was to come and work for SBG.
Wow.
So you don't know kind of what you've done, and just to meet you here and my time in the school system, kind of researching what you did. I was putting you in a Google search like 8 years ago, man. So I appreciate you.
I don't know how much he gets told that. Maybe maybe none at all. Just the impact that you made, both directly but also indirectly, to a lot of people coming up. So I want to encourage all of our listeners to register for the BMBA Conference. That's going to be coming to you guys again September 7th. We also have our ABA versus networking mixer. Fridays, the day before the BMBA Conference here in Atlanta, your third spot. So if you want to come network, your RBT, BCBA director, come and network with us, meet people, expand your professional networks, or shout out to ABA versus there. So fellas, we've had AJ here. We got some upcoming episodes coming up with some caregivers, some other people. I'm so thrilled about the work that we're doing here. Shout out to Arizona ABA. All right, Arizona ABA Conference is going to be our first conference that we're going to be shooting live at the conference. So if you're going to Arizona ABA Conference, we'll see you there. We're going to be set up in the lobby. We're going to be bringing on attendees. We're going to be bringing on presenters. We're staying innovative here. So if you go into that conference, you're going to see BTS there, and we're staying innovative. And we're going to come to other conferences close to you. So shout out to Arizona ABA again for allowing us to be at their conference. We're looking forward to being there and having an amazing time. All right. Well, fellas, we've done it again. So I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to us. Another episode of Beyond the Science. I want everybody who's supporting Beyond the Science, whether you're on TikTok, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you support us at. We're going to Apple Podcasts here next episode. So shout out. Thank you guys. Cheers to all that we're doing. And until next time.
Peace.
Hey.